And now at 8, breaking news. President Trump ordering the National Guard to deploy to Southern California in response to unrest and violence against federal immigration enforcement.
Tonight, the White House says it's deploying 2,000 National Guard troops to L.A., saying, quote, the Trump administration has a zero-tolerance policy for criminal behavior and violence, especially when that violence is aimed at law enforcement officers trying to do their jobs.
And Governor Newsom responding, saying, quote, the federal government is taking over the California National Guard and deploying 2,000 soldiers in Los Angeles, not because there is a shortage of law enforcement, but because they want a spectacle. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says Marines at Camp Pendleton are also on standby at this hour to respond if necessary. Let's get live to KCAL News reporter Zach Boetto, who's been in Compton all day, where protesters have been facing off with law enforcement after setting a car on fire. Zach.
Hey guys, in the last hour, deputies have since moved up Alondra closer to the 710 freeway on-ramp. They're now staged there and holding off protesters. Here behind me at the intersection that we've been standing at almost all day, Alondra and Atlantic, is basically now turned into a takeover where people are running and riding bikes and dirt bikes through the intersection. There's been a lot of trucks doing donuts here. Over to our left here, you can see that a security camera has been pushed over on this telephone pole. A lot of graffiti all over the businesses here in the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic, including Dave's Donuts here, an iconic location here in Compton. But as it turns to night here, protesters at this intersection have started to settle down a little bit. And again, deputies have since moved toward the 710 freeway. Here we go with a car doing a donuts here in the intersection. That same intersection is the one you're looking at now, where the car caught fire. There was a white Kia that came into the intersection a few hours ago, caught fire, and that set off a lot of mayhem here in Compton. Fireworks from the protesters toward the deputies. Deputies then shooting pepper balls at protesters, shooting flashbangs at protesters. Protesters scattering at that point, and then it really got chaotic at that point. So within the last hour, again, deputies starting to retreat, and then it calming down here. We do have some sound from some protesters who we spoke with earlier today, as well as the sheriff. Let's go ahead and roll that.
This is the United States of America. It's supposed to be for everybody. No one's better, no one's superior. We are the same. We bleed the same. We will die the same. We will all go under the earth the same.
All we're doing is trying to help our people from being separated from their families. That's all we're doing. That's all. Do you see anybody being violent right now, sir? No.
As the crowd has grown, it has become more violent. Individuals in the crowd that have been throwing objects at the federal agents, and we started to call in additional resources from around the county of Los Angeles.
Still a very active situation here in Compton. If you live in this area, a good idea to avoid the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic, and no one is getting over the bridge over the 710 freeway. You can see in the distance here a lot of Mexican flags, a lot of American flags. People, again, upset with these ICE raids and coming here to Compton to show their frustrations. Guys?
Yeah, Zach, we can see a lot of the people that are still out there. We heard someone doing a donut, as you said. You mentioned that LASD deputies have retreated. Are there any currently at the location you are at?
Yeah, there's a couple dozen deputies down the street here. You can't see them from where we're standing, but they're just past the Dave's Donuts here on the corner. Still a couple dozen deputies holding strong with their riot shields. They have some green fencing laid out in front of them. Again, they're not letting anyone get over the overpass, which crosses over the 710 freeway. Can't see them from where we are now, but there are still some protesters clashing with those deputies, and we'll work to get a better shot for you guys coming up here at 8:30.
Zach Boetto, live in Compton. Thank you so much. And it looks like those deputies are not showing full force to the protesters. You can see someone doing donuts right here in the intersection. Normally this is something they would stop, but in this case they're kind of holding back.
And a lot more traffic flowing at this point compared to earlier.
Well, earlier, not far from Compton, this was a scene in Paramount where protesters clashed with law enforcement. Protesters trying to block vehicles and throwing objects at cars and officers, using pepper spray and firing rubber bullets. Take a listen. Very intense scene there. Just before officers used tear gas and rubber bullets, protesters tried to block a U.S. Marshal bus from driving through that crowd.
This also in Paramount, you can see a U.S. Marshal Service bus head-to-head with a group of protesters, at one point trying to push the bus back before then making its way through, and law enforcement allowing it to cross paths there. And another moment we showed you earlier this afternoon, a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol vehicle also getting things thrown at it from protesters. At one point, looks like milk, rocks, other things being thrown at those vehicles as they pass by.
Over in Inglewood, this was the situation here. Citizens video shows someone being stuffed inside a Border Patrol vehicle there. A few people were outside of the car protesting the law enforcement. It's unclear if this was part of a larger raid or who the person was that was being taken in this video. We have reached out to federal officials but have not heard back yet. And tonight, a rally outside a detention center in downtown LA where protesters are gathering for anti-ICE rally on Alameda. This is happening right between Aliso and Temple. After yesterday's raids, they say they're standing against President Trump's immigration policies and fighting for dignity and equality. Now, joining the rally there, SEIU President David Huerta's nephew, who says his uncle is physically okay after being hurt during his arrest yesterday.
We're here in solidarity with him, in solidarity with the immigrant community. They're trying to criminalize people that are working class, people that are the backbone of this country. If they want to deal with bad people, fine. That's a whole different conversation. But they're targeting working families. They're separating children. Children are not the bad guys. Families and mothers are not the bad guys.
Huerta is the leader of one of the nation's largest labor union, remains in federal custody. He's accused of interfering with the LA immigration raids. Now, the U.S. attorney says Huerta was blocking an ICE detention van. The union says Huerta had to be taken to the hospital. He is expected in court on Monday.
Today's protests come after an hours-long demonstration in downtown LA yesterday. People crowded the federal building where detainees were taken following widespread immigration sweeps in LA. The protests got tense at times, with officers firing tear gas to clear the crowd. Where federal agents appeared to be staging. Protesters confronted those agents as several flashbang grenades went off. Several of the armored vehicles were also vandalized with graffiti.
And today, California lawmakers say they are being denied entry into the downtown LA detention center where detained migrants are being held. Congressman Jimmy Gomez and other elected leaders say they should be allowed to visit any facility that's detaining migrants, but we're told they weren't allowed in because of safety issues.
I've been to the Middle East, I've been to war zones, so I know what it's like to actually be in a situation that's a lot more dangerous than inside this building.
How many people are there? It is our job as members of Congress to have oversight.
Now, we reached out to Border Patrol for information about the facility, but have not heard back yet. And breaking news tonight, President Trump deploying the National Guard to deal with unrest over immigration enforcement here in Southern California. And
let's get live to KCAL News reporter Zach Boeto in Compton, where protesters have been facing off with law enforcement. Zach?
Yeah, hey guys, still an active scene here at Alondra and Atlantic. You can see behind me. People are starting to go through this intersection. Traffic is moving smoothly, but earlier today, a much different scene. We have video of a car fire that took place right at this intersection. Protesters and deputies clashing here in Compton, right next to Dave's Donuts. There were fireworks. There were pepper bombs, there were flashbangs going off earlier on today, and you can hear in the background, it sounds like there are still flashbangs going on just up Alondra here near the 710 overpass. That's where protesters and deputies are now clashing. We've been kind of blocked into this gas station, this Arco gas station here, where a lot of the action was taking place earlier this afternoon, now things have changed. There were people doing donuts in the intersection, a lot of damage and destruction happening, people tagging up walls in the area, businesses. They have since calmed down here, but deputies again and protesters now clashing up closer toward the overpass. We did hear from, I just did hear from a young man who said he was at the Home Depot at Paramount early this morning when ICE arrived. He said they blocked people off. They started to pepper spray and tear gas people. A young woman and her daughter got out of the car. They were tear gassed. Then he and his girlfriend got out of their car and began recording the situation. And he tells me that's when ICE detained his girlfriend. He says that she was born in the U.S., fully documented, but he says because he believes she was recording, they took her and detained her, and he has not heard from her in now what is 12 hours later. So we are here in Compton, and we are hearing from people who are having these firsthand experiences, and we're seeing what is taking place here at the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic. I don't see any other news crews here on scene right now. Helicopters overhead. Still a very active situation here. Protesters still clashing with police, and of course, they're here because of the ICE raids that have taken place over the last 2 days. Guys.
That's Joel from Compton. Zach, you heard from the sheriff earlier today as well. I know we had some sound from him earlier, but anything that really stood out to you from what the sheriff said? And if you have to go, that's okay.
Yeah, well, the sheriff was mentioning that they did not want to be involved in the immigration raids. That was the biggest thing from the sheriff. The sheriff said they only deployed deputies because the Department of Homeland Security asked for backup because the protest became violent early this morning, making it clear that the Sheriff's Department did not want to be involved in the immigration raids. Again, reacting and responding to the Department of Homeland Security's request for backup once the protests turned violent. And we have seen the violence. We've seen protesters shooting fireworks, and these aren't safe and sane fireworks that they're shooting at these deputies. They're shooting M80s. They're shooting Roman candles, and the deputies were firing back. So we know that the president has also decided to send out 2,000 more individuals who are coming out to help, the guardsmen. And so we'll see what happens now that it's getting dark. Again, traffic is back up and running. It seems like here at this intersection, things have now turned more into like a sideshow or a takeover here and less of a confrontational moment. But we know, of course, the protests and the deputies are still going face to face on the 710 overpass.
Zacoeto, thank you so much. Okay, joining us now is immigration attorney Alma Rosa Nieto. Thank you so much for being with us, Attorney Nieto.
My pleasure.
First and foremost, we have to ask, I'm sure you've been monitoring this situation since really it began here in Southern California, but what do you make of the ICE operations that we are seeing and President Trump's deployment of the National Guard?
Well, very frightening in and of itself, raids, but now with National Guard involved, I'm afraid that there may be violence or more violence and harm to immigrants and their families, as we've seen a girlfriend taking a video and then detained by ICE and her whereabouts unknown. The tactics are very frightening, very scary.
And on that note, have you heard of any other ICE detainments at any point today and about where the people who have been detained are being held? Though it sounded there, like you said, to parts unknown. So is it still unknown?
It is still unknown, and because there's little space, who knows where people will be detained and taken to. They could be detained in Los Angeles and then sent even out of state where there is room for detention.
Attorney, you know, we heard from members of Congress here locally who say they are being denied visitation to these local detention centers. Have any attorneys been allowed in, and what are the current conditions that you are hearing?
Well, attorneys can, if there's a G28, it's a form that both the client and the attorney sign, stating that they can represent and access a person that's detained by ICE. So, which is my recommendation, if you have an attorney and if you are undocumented, it's best to have that form signed in ink with your attorney so that your attorney can have access either in the courts to see the person or in a detention center. I'm not familiar with if they're denying attorneys or not access, but usually I've gone to many detention centers in my practice of 40 years, but everything has changed now.
Attorney Nieta, we're going to let you go on this note. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. We're going to have to move down to downtown LA as things seem to be picking up down there. Yeah, let's check back in with Lauren there because she's, as Leslie mentioned, just right there on the scene. And Lauren, we're taking a look at the camera here. It looks like a couple people and the crowd sort of inching closer and closer to that skirmish line. What are you seeing? Are you hearing anything at all as well?
Right. Yeah, that's right, Gio. Yeah, this crowd here. Now I see Leslie was mentioning, you guys were referencing. I was on the other side of the truck. I didn't see this small, relatively small compared to earlier group of I don't even know if we can call them protesters at this point because I don't know if they were here earlier, but they are facing off with police right now. You can see officers. They have that their gun that they're going to use to shoot that tear gas at them if they move closer. And we keep seeing people test their limits here. And the officers are not fooling around tonight. They will deploy that tear gas the closer you get. I also see officers, they've been showing their flashlights, checking us, seeing who we are, also seeing putting their flashlights into the crowd here, and they're telling people to get back. But if they keep inching closer, and it's just asking for trouble here. The officers are not fooling around tonight. They want everybody back behind this line. And then also, I should mention, which I didn't mention earlier, this road is now blocked off. And moments before that tear gas initially first went off, we had cars trying to get through here, and the protesters were redirecting traffic to turn around to go down the road again. And then all of a sudden, things took a really dramatic turn. But yes, that's what we're seeing here. We also see people holding up signs here disapproving of ICE and antagonizing the police, telling them, I've heard them say, get another job, get out of here, you don't belong here. Just things like that are being said to the officers as they're on the line here, trying to hold everybody back.
And Lauren, before we let you go, I sort of want to draw contrast again to what you were mentioning earlier when we first checked in with you, which was regarding the difference between what we're seeing now, what caused the agitation that then prompted tear gas being used versus what happened closer to, you've been there since 3 p.m. when you mentioned it was more peaceful protesting and a lot calmer. I mean, just sort of for anyone who might just be catching up, compare and contrast the difference between what you've been seeing throughout this entire evening.
Gio, it's night and day. Earlier today, now as I'm talking, you're going to hear police sirens come by here. I'm not sure. Let me take a look here. Okay, looked like CHP. They're just turning around there. Yes, complete night and day. Earlier, it was an organized demonstration. People were out here. They had their signs. They were protesting. They were not blocking traffic. They were at the street at some points, but nothing too crazy. But and this is, the line is moving, so we're going to move back as police move forward here because we don't want to get in their way. And, okay, we're going to wrap. Okay, we'll send it back to you.
Okay, Lauren, get to safety. Thank you so much. We are being joined now by U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley, if we can get to that at this moment. Hi, U.S. Attorney. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so first of all, we know President Trump has deployed the National Guard, 2,000 guardsmen. Newsom is calling it a spectacle, inflammatory. What is your response tonight?
Look, the behavior we saw yesterday and today is just completely unacceptable. We have federal law enforcement agents engaged in lawful activities. They're executing search warrants. They're executing deportation orders. They're out doing targeted enforcement. And you have these agitators who are highly organized, highly coordinated, and they're coming out and they're impeding our investigations. They're assaulting officers. They're throwing Molotov cocktails. They're throwing rocks. They're injuring our officers. It is out of control. And since the state of California, the governor can't control his state, then yes, the federal government is going to step in. The National Guard's on its way, and we will have peace and order in Los Angeles.
You mentioned earlier today that there were more federal law enforcement operations happening in LA County and that they would, quote, proceed as planned through the weekend. Is there a specific number of raids or enforcement operations that are going to be conducted that people can expect for the rest of the weekend into tomorrow night?
Yeah, so let me be clear. There's no raids. Yesterday, we executed several search warrants at workplaces that are in violation of federal laws. There was a warrant signed by a federal judge. They're violating labor laws. They had fraudulent records they're using for their employees, all kinds of stuff. So we had warrants to go there. The other activities that we're doing this weekend and what will continue is the targeted enforcement. We're looking for criminal illegal aliens who have arrest warrants and final deportation orders. People have deportation orders. We're arresting really bad people out there. We're child abusers and violent criminals. We're getting them out of the country, and that's what the American people voted for, and that's going to continue. That's not stopping.
And I want to get back to the situation currently in downtown LA. The video is playing as we're speaking with you, and we're watching law enforcement, in this skirmish line as we're watching fireworks go off. What, if any, action has your office taken against some of these people that have impeded on these investigations?
Yeah, so we've made over 20 arrests today. If someone is impeding a federal officer, if they're assaulting a federal officer, if they're damaging federal property, they are subject to federal prosecution, and we are doing that. I think what you're seeing on the TV today, that falls more under the state jurisdiction where you have an unlawful assembly, you're having riots, you're having disturbance of the peace. I know the sheriff's office was doing arrests today out in Paramount, and I suspect the LAPD will make appropriate arrests in downtown LA tonight.
And going off of that, I sort of want to draw attention once again to really separating who is responsible for who, or rather who's operating what exactly, because I think there's a lot of confusion among viewers and perhaps anybody else watching at home as to who is doing what. And I know the Sheriff's Department issued a statement earlier today that they would not cooperate with federal authorities. But if you can, I want you to draw some distinctions for us as to who's doing what throughout this weekend.
Sure. The federal government does have ongoing criminal and immigration enforcement operations. We have not asked the state or local officials to assist in that. We are doing that. The sheriffs and the local police are only getting involved when there's a public safety issue, when there's a danger to our agents or there's danger to members of the public in Los Angeles. There's a disturbance of the peace. They're getting involved from a public safety perspective. They are not involved in any of our immigration enforcement operations.
U.S. Attorney, something that the governor has come out to say with the National Guard coming in is that the National Guard really helped us through the Eaton fire, the Palisades fire, and built a sense of trust. He mentioned that having them come for a situation like this would break that trust. What is your response to that?
They're there to restore order. Anyone who looks at the scene on your TV, look at that. It's out of control. What normal person, what member of the public feels comfortable being in downtown LA right now? Nobody. So I don't know what he's talking about. He needs to watch the TV and see what's going on. It's out of control. And since he can't control the state, he can't control the lawlessness, we'll do it for him. And that's what the president's doing. He's deploying the National Guard. We will have order in the city of Los Angeles.
Well, to continue on that topic then, because I want to bring in the fact that the mayor said something regarding that as well, and I'm going to use her words directly, where she says, quote, "These tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city." And there is an argument about, executing lawful search warrants and et cetera, but then when it escalates into something like this, there are naturally a lot of people that are afraid. I wonder if you see at all any potential argument for the fact that perhaps it's almost overblowing to a degree and getting to a degree where sort of everybody has lost the handle on the wheel, so to speak.
Well, we are in control of our operations. We have not canceled any of our operations. We have been successful in both our missions yesterday and today. So everything's going as planned on our front. What's out of control is the response by the agitators. And I will tell you, they appear to be highly coordinated and sophisticated. We saw union activists and organizers be involved in these efforts to resist our operations. So there's something going on here where you have this sophisticated resistance that's being mounted against the federal government. And we're looking into that, and we're going to look at who the leaders of those operations are. But look, we didn't cause this. I mean, this reaction is not normal. We are enforcing the law as written. We're not doing anything crazy or draconian. We're going to a judge. We're getting search warrants. We're getting arrest warrants. We're going to immigration court. We're enforcing immigration law. If they don't like it, they should talk to Congress. Congress writes the laws. We enforce the law.
And U.S. Attorney, before we let you go here, we are watching, some of these protesters throw fireworks right at the skirmish line in between these law enforcement officers. You can imagine how dangerous that situation is. But we're talking 2,000 National Guardsmen. Do we know when they will arrive here in L.A. and what that will look like?
I think you could expect them to arrive relatively quickly within the next 24 hours. You're probably going to see their presence. And it is very dangerous, and we hope that all the LAPD officers remain safe out there. We don't want any officers to get hurt. We are imploring the public to not do this. Do not come out there. Do not agitate the officers. People, of course, have a First Amendment right to publicly and peacefully protest, but you don't have a right to throw objects or fireworks or rocks at police officers. That's not First Amendment. That's a crime. And a lot of these people who think they're getting away with it, we've got lots of video online and both surveillance videos. We have FBI teams working around the clock. We will identify you, we will find you, and we will come get you. So you are not safe. You can expect a visit at your door at some point.
U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley for the Central District of California. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time this evening.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.